In this lesson, we're going to be adding a login functionality. So remember, we've done the register user. So now we need to be able to log in a registered user. And to do that, we need to check if the user with that username exists. And if it does exist, we need to also check that the submitted password is the same as the saved password. And also, we need to create a token and then send a token back to that user. So let's dive into it. Um, so what we want to do is to um, let's create the function first. Export dot login user equals request response, and then so what we want to do is when the user submits a username and password combination, we want to check if user exists and check if password is correct, and then we want to create a token and send token to user. So now let's start by checking if the user exists. So what we want to do is say user.find1, and what we want to find is if the username matches the request.body.username. And then we can add a callback function, error or found user. And if there's an error, we want to return res.status 500.json. I want them. Okay, let's just send the error. And if there's no error, that means okay, that does not actually mean there was a found user. So let's check if there is no found user. Now what we want to do is return res.status. Let's use a 401 of yes 401 dot json. 401 means unauthorized, and want the message to be incorrect username. So let's test this in bits. I'm going to go back to my auth routes and then add this route router.posts slash login, and then auth controller dot login user. All right, so I'm going to save this and head back to Postman. And now I'm going to create a new tab and try to send a post request to the login route. This is taking a little while. Okay, so local hosts on port 4000 slash auth slash login, and we want that to be a post request. So in the body, I'm going to send raw data as expected, and let's say username is gibberish for a start. Let's send this request, and the response says incorrect username because there is no user with this username gibberish or gibbrit, like I wrongly wrote there. Now let's try one of the users we created in the last lesson. I remember we had Powerpuff Girls. Okay, so let's update this to say if there's a user, um, else return status 200.json found user. Let's save this and check if the server is up. Okay, now let's use Powerpuff Girls instead. Powerpuff Girls, and now you can see we have the user correctly. So what we want to do is not just to accept the username, we also want to check with the password. So let's check if this user sends in a password, this time an incorrect password. Let's restrict this user from being able to log in. So I'm going to head back here. I'm going to take this off. So if there's no found user, it's going to send back this error response. Otherwise, it's going to continue. So let's check if the password is correct. Now you remember that the password is hashed, it's not plain text. So we cannot say request.body.password equals found user dot password. We cannot do this because this is a hashed password while this is plain text. And also we cannot hash this again because the hashing algorithm is salted. So what we want to do is to use a bcrypt method called compare or compare sync. So we do that by saying bcrypt dot compare sync, and this is going to return a boolean which is true or false if there's a match. So we're going to pass in the password coming from the request as the first parameter, request.body.password, and the second parameter will be the hash, which is the user's saved password. So that will be found user dot password, and we'll say let's match be equal to this. And now for now, let's just send back the match as response. So return res.json match. All right, so now let's head back to Postman and send this request again. Now you see that the match is false because this is not the correct password for this user. Now let's try using the correct password, which is power, and let's see what the response will be. All right, so now the match is true. So that is how the compare sync method works with bcrypts. Don't mind the pronunciation, please. All right, so this means that we found a match between the supplied password and the saved password. Remember that has to match correctly for the user to be logged in. So what we want to do now is if match, or rather if there is no match, let's return res.status 41.json and let the message be incorrect password. Otherwise, we're going to create a token for the user and then send the token back to the user. And we're just going to do that the same way using jwt.sign. So we just say jwt.sign. The payload again will just be id is found user dot ID, username is found user dot username. Of course, we can create a separate function to always sign um, our JWTs, which we will do later when we are refactoring the application. So first name will be found user dot first name, and then the last name will be found user dot last name, and we'll add the secret, which is the secret variable, and then our options expires in the expiry time with set earlier, and then the next would be a callback function error and the token. And what we want to do is, if there's an error, return rest.status 500.json error. Else we want to return rest.status 200.json, and message should be user login, user logged in, and then token will also be sent. So I'm going to save this, and now let's go back to Postman and send this request again. Is my server up? Yes, it is. Now let's send this again, and now we have the user logged in and the token sent. And if we use a wrong username, you can see there's an incorrect username, and if we use a wrong password, it says incorrect password. So now our login functionality is done. Now we can have users register from here, and then they can now log in from here. So in the next lesson, we'll now be authenticating our routes to have only logged in users have access to the books. So I'll see you in the next lesson.